Hello friends, welcome once again to Rick's Garage. Today I have what's called garage rash. You've heard of wheel rash where people hit curbs. Well, this car has rubbed the garage side of the garage door several times on this side. I'd like to say my wife has done it, I'd like to say my son did it, but the truth of the matter is I've done it. I ordered some touch-up paint, a can of paint, and I'm going to try to touch up this bumper cover here where all these rashes are. First of all, I'm going to wet sand it to what they call feather it. Feather all the places where the paint has been scraped off completely, and I'm going to try to feather that, and I'm going to use a wet 220 grit paper to sand the areas where the paint is actually chipped off. So what I've got here is a hose. I've cut it off actually. This hose has been repaired many times and I've got lots of repair kits, so I've cut it off, that way there's no danger of doing any further scratching on the car. So I've got the water running very slowly. I've got some 220 grit, and what I'm going to try to do is feather this area here where the paint had come off with the 220 paper. You see the paper's not filling up. That's the advantage of wet sanding it. Just keep the water running over it and just lightly sand it. So everywhere that the paint has come off, I'm going to lightly sand this just to feather it, and we'll prime those areas. Now the other areas where the paint is still in good condition, we're just going to lightly sand it with the 600 paper after we prime these areas that needed to be feathered. The old paint itself is an excellent primer for the new paint, as long as it's in good condition. So we're just lightly feathering these areas that need to be primed. So you get the gist of what I'm trying to do here. Let's see what that feels like. Oh yeah, you can't even feel it. That's good. All right, so I'm going to hit some of the other areas, like right here. This needs to be feathered. Mostly paint from the garage in this area, but there is a spot where it came through. Wet sanding is the easiest thing you can do. Okay, now we got some areas down in here. This looks like, you know, it's just paint from the garage. It doesn't look like the paint come off the car, so we'll hit that with 600. Right here we'll hit that with 600. So I don't know if you can see it. Let me turn the camera a little bit. There's a little area up here that needs to be feathered. A little area right here. It doesn't take a lot of time. And this little seam right here needs to be feathered up a little bit. Okay. Let's see if there's anything in the front. Little spot right here that you can't see. You turn the camera a little bit. Little spot right up here in front. little spot right in here. Okay, I think that's all I require for feathering. Okay, now I'm going to lightly touch up these areas that I feathered with filler primer. Taped up a few places. As you can see, I'm not very good at taping. This primer fills quite nicely. Let that set up a little bit, then I'll put another coat on it here and there, and then we'll sand the whole thing with 600 and then touch it up with the spray I've got. Okay, so we're ready to put another coat of primer on it. What I'm using, by the way, is Rust-Oleum filler and sandable primer. Two coats will be enough. Well, like I say, we're going to sand the whole thing with 600. We'll wet sand it. Okay, now we'll hit this whole area after it dries, not today, with 600 grit, and then we'll do the finished coat of paint on it. Stepping back a little bit, you can see the areas I primed. It's easy enough to get the matching color. All you gotta do is go to the door and get the trim code, and then order that color paint. There's all kinds of companies that sell it. Okay, I'm ready to begin my wet sanding with the 600 paper. So I'm just going to keep the water running over it. I folded up a piece of 600 paper. You see how nicely and quickly that works. We'll see how it almost rubs it right off almost immediately. This is very quick and easy sanding when you wet sand. It gives it a nice base for the paint to adhere to. Now some auto body guys swear you have to use 800 and 1000 grit, but for what we're doing, 600 is fine. Not like we're doing $1 million finish here. So we're just going to keep wet sanding this, and then the next step will be after it dries, probably not today, but after it dries, we'll go ahead and start taping it up. You can see how easy this is. And this 600 paper will give a nice surface for the paint to adhere to. Friends, I'm finally ready to paint this Fender. We just got some finished taping to do. It could not be a better day for painting. It's a beautiful fall afternoon. We've already had a frost, so there's very few insects. There's almost no wind whatsoever. So it could not be better conditions. It's about 72 degrees. You want, typically your best results are between 70 and 75. So also you do not want to paint in direct sunlight. The sun now is behind the car. I've got the car turned so the area we're painting is not in the sunlight. So we're going to do a little bit of taping here, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and apply the paint. You want to shake the paint really good. It's been sitting out in the sun, so it should be fairly warm. We're going to try a couple of test sprays. Now, when you spray, you never want to go back and forth like this, because everywhere you stop and go, there's going to be a run. So you always trigger it when you're moving, then release. Trigger when you're moving, then release. So right now, we're going to do a little test spray on an area that's not going to show, and see how well it matches up. It's a little bit darker than what I would like, but what we got to work with. So what you want to do is you want to spray all your edges first. Oh, it doesn't match too bad. Just a light coat to start with. Hopefully when it dries it'll match a little better. I'm going very lightly. I'm going to put several coats. Keep shaking the can. Looks like when it's all said and done, it's going to match pretty well. It's kind of lightening up as it dries. You notice it drying to a little bit of a dull finish. It's supposed to do that. This is a base coat, clear coat. All right, we'll let that set up a little bit, then we'll put the next coat on. Looks like it's gonna match okay. When I first put it on, it looked a little dark, but it looks like it's lightening up as it dries. We'll come back when I'm ready to put the next coat on. Okay, we're gonna put on the final coat. All right, for good or bad, we're gonna let that dry up. We're gonna call it done. Well, friends, it's about time I brought this video to a close. It's been a couple of weeks since we finished painting the part of the fender and the bumper cover. Looks like it came out reasonably good. That, by the way, is my young German Shepherd, Cochero. I'm just going to do a little compounding now to blend some of the areas where the fresh paint meets the old paint. Now you may notice I didn't show all the coats when I was painting the car. The reason for that was the video was just getting way too long, and putting on the first coat and the second coat is pretty similar. Between the base coats I only waited about 10 minutes, and then when I put on the clear coat I waited an hour or more. That was the only thing you probably did not see. So I want to thank you once again for watching Rick's Garage. Before I go, I'm going to post a couple of videos to your left. If you find one or the other of interest, feel free to click on them. And to your right is going to be a picture of my avatar in the form of my trusty German Shepherd. Please feel free to click on that if you wish to subscribe. So all in all, it didn't come out too bad. It's not by any means a professional job. So I want to thank you once again for watching, and we hope to see you all again really, really soon.